Shalom and welcome back to Israel with Aline. Today we are going to follow in the footsteps of Jesus on the Temple Mount. We will see exactly where he walked, where he preached, and even where he performed his miracles. The Temple Mount is extremely important to the story of Jesus. He was there since he was a child, just a few days old when he was presented by his parents. And he stayed on the Temple Mount preaching until his last days before being taken to prison, crucified, and resurrected. Today we're going to deeply explore the history of this place and its connection with Jesus. So if you're ready, let's get started. Jesus visited the Temple Mount dozens of times, and most of the times he visited the temple in Jerusalem. He entered through the Huldah gates, which are exactly these entrances right next to us. Now we are going to go up the stairs together. Look how amazing this is. These stairs are original from the time of Jesus. He has a good chance of having walked exactly on these steps. And notice something rather strange. If we look at the steps, we see that they are different sizes. Here I'm stepping up a small step, now a big step. Why was it made this way? These stairways were built this way so that no one could run up to the Temple Mount. Sometimes people would get so emotional about arriving at this place that they would get anxious and want to run up. However, anyone who tried to run up these stairs would fall. The idea was that everyone should go up slowly, respecting the holiness and importance of this place. Because we have to remember that just a few meters from us is the peak of Mount Moriah, where Abraham went to sacrifice his son Isaac. Where was the Ark of the Covenant, the mercy seat, and the divine presence? The place where the first and second temples of Jerusalem stood? Where prophets, kings, and of course the great presence of Jesus passed through this place. Look at the size of these stones. All of this that we're walking beside is a single stone, and it is original from the time of the Second Temple of Jerusalem. It has been in this place right here since the time of Jesus. And walking a little further and looking over here to the side, we see the three Huldah gates, where Jesus passed many times on his way up to the Temple Mount. However, we reach the entrance of the gates, but we won't be able to cross through them because the gates are closed. And we will walk toward the western wall of the temple complex, which is where the entrance is nowadays. As we saw, the Huldah gates are completely closed and sealed. And that's why, to access the Temple Mount, we have to go up through another place. And that's why we're using this wooden bridge, which of course is much more modern. However, it gives us a very special view of the Western Wall. So let's look at it as we keep going up. Music. Let's start with Jesus' first visit to the temple in Jerusalem, which happened when he was only 40 days old. That's because the law of Moses said that the firstborn should be presented to God, and at that time this was done at the temple in Jerusalem. They went right after Maria's purification, also according to the laws of Leviticus. The temple in Jerusalem was a gigantic complex. It covered 150,000 square meters. That's right, 150,000 square meters. And what we're going to do today is get to know the exact places where each event in Jesus' life happened, and that's why we continue our journey. We're walking to the place where Jesus was presented. The dome of the rock is without a doubt what stands out the most in this place because of its beauty. However, that's not what we're talking about today. Today we came to learn about and follow the steps of Jesus, so that's the direction we're going. The moment we arrived here, a strong wind started blowing. But I want you to look at these arches here. Where these arches are today, that's where the Nicanor gate used to be. And this area we're entering now is what was called the women's court. And it started here at the Nicanor gate, going down the stairs and continuing through a large courtyard. And it ended at the location of the beautiful gate. Despite the name, this courtyard was not only for women, rather this was the last area women could reach, because beyond here it was an area exclusive to men and priests. And in this area where we are, it's exactly where women and families would come to bring their offerings and present their firstborns. And that's exactly what Jesus' family, Joseph and Mary, did. Because they were a humble family, they brought 2 doves here. And it's in this same courtyard where they meet Simeon. There was a man in Jerusalem named Simeon who was righteous and devout and who was waiting for the consolation of Israel. And the Holy Spirit was upon him. And it had been revealed to him by the Holy Spirit that he would not die before he had seen the Lord's Christ. Moved by the Spirit, he went into the temple. When the parents brought the child Jesus to do for him what the custom of the law required, Simeon took him in his arms and praised God, saying, "O sovereign Lord, as you have promised, you now dismiss your servant in peace. For my eyes have seen your salvation, which you have prepared in the sight of all people, a light for revelation to the Gentiles and for the glory of Israel, your people." The boy's father and mother were amazed at what was said about him. And here in the women's courtyard is also where they meet the prophetess Anna. We know that Jesus came to Jerusalem and the temple several times during his childhood. It is written in the Bible that his parents came here every year to celebrate the Jewish Passover festival. And surely Jesus accompanied them several of those times. And we have one of those times that is specifically written in the Bible, the visit of Jesus to the temple in Jerusalem when he was 12 years old. When he turned 12 years old, they went up to the festival, as was the custom. After the festival was over, as his parents were returning home, the boy Jesus stayed behind in Jerusalem without them realizing it. Thinking he was with their group, they walked all day. Then they began to look for him among their relatives and acquaintances. Not finding him, they returned to Jerusalem to look for him. After 3 days, they found him in the temple, sitting among the teachers, listening to them and asking them questions. Everyone who heard him was amazed at his understanding and his answers. When his parents saw him, they were astonished. His mother said to him, "Son, why have you done this to us? Your father and I were anxiously looking for you." He asked, "Why were you looking for me?" "Didn't you know I should be in my father's house?" But they didn't understand what he was telling them. In this passage, the exact location within the Jerusalem temple complex where this happened is not recorded. But we know that it probably happened here in one of these outer courtyards, where the crowds could listen to Jesus. Jesus spent the first 30 years of his life in what we call his private years. I mean, he hadn't revealed himself clearly yet. And suddenly, at 30 years old, he begins his ministry. And he performs a great number of miracles and teachings. His entire public life, everything we have recorded in the Bible, and much more. What was the turning point in Jesus' life? Two events together. The first of them was the baptism in the waters of the Jordan River performed by John the Baptist. And the second event right after that was the temptation. The three temptations made by Satan. And one of them happened here on the Temple Mount where we are going now. We can already see in the background that corner which is the pinnacle, the place of the temptation. Let's listen to the passage as we walk. Then the devil took Jesus to the holy city and set him on the pinnacle of the temple and said, "If you are the Son of God, throw yourself down from here, for it is written, He will command His angels concerning you, and they will lift you up in their hands, so that you will not strike your foot against a stone." Jesus answered, "It is also written, do not put the Lord your God to the test." But how can we know that the pinnacle the Bible refers to is exactly this area where I am now? For that, we start by reading the Bible itself, the New Testament in its original language. In Greek, it is written that the temptation happened at the pterogaion. That means in Greek, the little wing or the edge. And so, if we look here, we know that the original area has to be a point, an edge that sticks out. And that's exactly what we see here. We can also look to the church fathers, the tradition of the early church, like Eusebius of Caesarea and Jerome, who say that this happened at the southeast corner of the Temple Mount. And we can also refer to first-century writings like those of the Jewish historian Flavius Josephus, who says that from this point, the southeast corner, when you came here and looked down, it made you dizzy. And it makes perfect sense because this corner is by far the highest of them all. From here, we not only have the height of the entire Temple Mount, but on this side, we also have the Kidron Valley. So here, originally, it led to a cliff of more than 40 meters, a height that a person would not survive. During his 3 years of public ministry, Jesus came to the Temple Mount many times, mainly to teach. And it is written specifically one time in the Bible, when he comes for the Feast of Dedication, which is another name for the Feast of Hanukkah, which happens every year, around the time of December. And it is written that at that moment, at the Feast of Dedication, he was specifically at Solomon's porch. Solomon's porch, despite the name, is not from the time of King Solomon. It was actually the porch from Jesus' time, which was located here along this entire wall, from the east wall of the Temple Mount. It was an area with columns and a roof that covered it. So it was a great place for Jesus to protect himself from the elements here, so he could teach a large crowd. And it was right here in Solomon's portico. He teaches the parable of the Good Shepherd. Unfortunately, one of the saddest things here on the Temple Mount is the lack of archaeological excavations because of the political sensitivity of this place. Practically no archaeological excavations have been carried out up to this day. Most of the history of this place remains buried beneath our feet and is inaccessible to us. As much as we can come here and tell the story, if we want to touch much of the archaeology, it is hidden right here under this floor. However, there is an exception. There was a moment in history when archaeology was removed here from the Temple Mount, and it wasn't a small amount. 9,000 tons were taken from the Temple Mount, exactly from this place that I want to tell you about now, in the 1990s. The UACF, which is the Muslim organization that controls the Temple Mount, carried out illegal underground works in the area called Solomon's Stables. From there, they removed 9,000 tons of earth from the Temple Mount, mixed with archaeological remains, and discarded it in the Kidron Valley. They did this to build an underground mosque at this location, which has a capacity for 10,000 people and is called El Marwan. However, unfortunately, I can't go down these stairs. Access to this place is completely forbidden. To Jews and Christians nowadays, the place is guarded by the UACF, which is a Muslim organization, and that's why we can't enter it. But what was done with all that earth was that it was thrown into the Kidron Valley. She was rescued by a group of archaeologists. Among them were Tzahi Devira and Gabriel Barchai. They carried out a rescue project to save the soil from the Temple Mount, along with its archaeology, a unique and extremely important project. We even took part in this project and we filmed it for you. I'll leave the link up here for those who want to watch. And in the sifting project, they've already managed to find thousands of objects connected to the first and second temples of Jerusalem. Coins, inscriptions, pieces of the floor, even one of the actual capitals, a piece of a column from Solomon's portico. And if you want to help the project and have a unique piece of history with you, listen closely now. I want to show you this right here. This here is a little vial with soil from the Temple Mount. It was taken exactly from this location. Look in the background at what an important place we are. In the background is the pinnacle. Here on the side is Solomon's portico. Jesus walked through this area and people tried to destroy history and archaeology. But this project managed to separate the soil from the Temple Mount and put it in these little vials. And if you want one of them for your home, you can literally take a piece of Jerusalem's history with you for your home. And at the same time, you'll be supporting the sifting project, which is still ongoing. Many things are still being discovered. I'll leave the QR code here on the screen for you. Also, the link is in the description. And now we continue our walk along the east wall where Solomon's portico was, and right ahead of us we'll reach the Golden Gate. Right behind us, we can clearly see the Golden Gate, where Jesus makes his triumphal entry. He came from the Mount of Olives riding on a little donkey. He goes down through the Kidron Valley and enters through the gate, passing exactly through this area here. And here he enters the Temple Mount to begin his last week, his week here in Jerusalem. And when he is here on the Temple Mount, the ones who recognize him and come to him are actually the children, the purest and most innocent people. They look at him and shout, "Hosanna, Son of David." That is the great triumphal entry, and the recognition of Jesus happened in this area where we are. And in his last week, which was really a very busy and tumultuous week, It is written in the Bible several times that he came here to the Temple Mount every day to teach. Look at that. Every day he came here. And all these days that Jesus came here to the Temple Mount, his focus was always on teaching, and precisely part of this teaching, it happened here next to the treasury. If you recognize it, we are back in the women's court. And next to the women's court was the treasury, as you can see in this illustration. Jesus sat down in front of the place where the contributions were placed and watched the crowd putting money into the offering boxes. Many rich people were putting in large amounts. Then a poor widow came and put in 2 very small copper coins worth only a few cents. Calling his disciples to him, Jesus said, "Uomo se kosan palmo chiowa." I tell you the truth, this poor widow has put more into the offering box than all the others. They all gave out of their wealth, but she, out of her poverty, put in everything she had to live on. See how Jesus used the different areas of the Temple Mount for his teachings. And also here next to the treasury. I mean, in this area where we are. It wasn't the first time Jesus had taught. Some time before, during the Feast of Tabernacles, he had also come here to teach. This is written very clearly in John chapter 8. This place has changed a lot over the last 2,000 years since Jesus was here. But we can clearly see here the marks of history, the history that has never left this place. After several days of teaching here on the Temple Mount, Jesus' time had come. Here in Jerusalem is where Jesus was arrested, condemned, crucified, but also the place of his resurrection and his ascension to heaven. The ascension happened here from the Mount of Olives, which we can see on the other side, and right after his ascension. Where did his disciples return to? To the Temple Mount to praise. We see how the importance of this place doesn't end after Jesus' time. We see the connection of the early church and also the disciples, the apostles, with this place. Pedro and John healed a lame man beside the beautiful gate, which was on the other side of the women's courtyard. And then Pedro went to Solomon's portico to preach there as well. We have to understand that the importance of the Temple Mount hasn't ended. This is the place where the near sacrifice of Isaac by Abraham happened. The covenant of monotheism that we follow to this day was sealed at this place. The prophets walked here. The kings walked here. Jesus also passed through here. Here he performed miracles. And here his disciples also kept coming. Just as we keep coming here to this day, passing through this place, to tell his story, to connect us with the miracles and with the past, with the present, and also with the future. Because there is still so much to happen in this place. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Don't forget to check out the link that's on the screen now or in the description. A big hug, and I'll see you next week.